The city greets you not with open arms, but with sharp edges and relentless momentum. Taxi horns slice through the air like brass trumpets in a dissonant symphony. The sidewalks pulse with hurried footsteps, the rhythm of ambition echoing off the canyon walls of steel and glass. This is New York, a place where stories are born, rewritten, and sometimes crushed under the weight of reality. In the middle of it all walks Nora Stephens, heels clicking with precision. Phone pressed to her ear as she negotiates another book deal that could make or break someone's career. To her colleagues, she is the shark, sleek and unflinching. A woman who never flinches at rejection, who can smell weakness in a contract from a mile away. To the men she's dated, she's something else entirely. The woman who always gets left behind when they find their way back to sweeter, softer women in small towns. Nora knows the narrative people write about her. She's heard it enough times to recite it herself. Too sharp, too focused, too cold. She doesn't laugh at the right moments, doesn't cry at the wrong ones. She knows she's the woman in the background of someone else's love story. The ambitious ex left behind when the hero runs back to the girl who makes him remember the taste of sweet tea and summer nights. But there's a reason she holds herself so tightly together. Behind her steely professionalism and her perfectly tailored dresses lies the echo of loss. Years ago, she and her younger sister Libby lost their mother. The grief carved lines into her heart that never quite healed. From that moment on, Nora decided she would be the caretaker, the provider, the one who never fell apart no matter how much she wanted to. So she buried herself in work, manuscripts, deadlines, negotiations. These became her armor. The city's noise drowned out the silence of absence. But the cost of keeping her heart safe was steep. Every relationship she tried to build crumbled, not because she didn't care, but because she cared too much. Because she wanted too much control, too much order in a world that had shown her just how chaotic it could be. On a gray afternoon, Nora closes another deal, her voice clipped and confident, her expression unreadable to anyone watching. Yet the moment the call ends, she glances at her phone and sees a message from Libby. Her sister's words crack through her shell like sunlight breaking a storm. Libby is glowing through the screen as always, full of life, full of warmth. She doesn't ask Nora about clients or deadlines. She simply writes, "Come away with me. Just for a little while. Let's have a summer together." Nora exhales, leaning against the cold glass of her office window. The city sprawls beneath her, dazzling and demanding. She has never been the heroine in someone's love story, but she has always been Libby's anchor. And now Libby is asking her for something more, a chance to escape, to breathe, to rediscover themselves somewhere far from the skyscrapers and deadlines. The idea feels impossible. Nora's calendar is packed, her clients are relentless, and she thrives on the adrenaline of the city. Yet something in her chest shifts. Maybe it's exhaustion. Maybe it's the gnawing loneliness she tries so hard to ignore. Or maybe it's the unshakable love she feels for the little sister who still sees her as someone worth saving. She closes her laptop, the city lights flickering against her reflection. For once, she doesn't make a pro-con list. She doesn't analyze the career risks or calculate the hours she'll lose. She simply says yes. A summer in Sunshine Falls, North Carolina. A small town straight out of the romance novels she sells. A place she never imagined herself belonging to. A place where, unbeknownst to her, the story she thought she knew about herself, about love, family, and what it means to be the heroine, will begin to unravel and be rewritten. The plane dips through clouds and Nora feels her stomach lift, the skyline of New York dissolving behind her like the last page of a book. Sunshine Falls, North Carolina, is nothing like the setting she knows from her work. In the novels she sells, small towns are bathed in a glow of perpetual summer, where farmers' markets brim with peaches and every shopkeeper knows your name. To her, those towns have always been fiction. Yet as she and Libby roll their suitcases down a narrow main street lined with pastel storefronts and hanging flower baskets, it feels as if they've stepped straight into one of those glossy paperback covers. Libby is already enchanted. She points out the vintage bookstore with its creaky sign, gasps at the bakery windows fogged with sugar-dusted pastries, and clutches Nora's arm as though she might burst with delight. Nora, on the other hand, keeps scanning the horizon for the nearest train back to Manhattan. The sidewalks are too quiet. The air is too clean. She misses the comforting press of crowds, the constant hum of ambition. Here, the world feels slowed down, like a novel where the author lingers too long on the scenery. Their rental cottage is a white clapboard house with peeling paint, perched on the edge of a river that glitters under the southern sun. Inside, the floors creak with every step, and the kitchen smells faintly of cedar and lemon soap. Libby spins in a circle, declaring it perfect, while Nora eyes the lumpy couch and the too small shower. But she bites her tongue. This is Libby's dream, not hers, and Nora has promised herself she will play along. That night, over takeout pizza and mismatched plates, Libby unveils a surprise. From her tote bag, she produces a handwritten list scrawled in looping purple ink. Across the top, in big letters, the ultimate small-town transformation checklist. The items are whimsical, romantic, and maddeningly unrealistic. Ride a horse, help save a small business, befriend a stranger, go on a date with a local, kiss beneath the stars. Nora laughs, certain Libby is joking. But her sister's eyes are serious. We're doing this, Nor. You've been carrying the weight of the world since Mom died. You need a reset. You deserve something more than contracts and client calls. For a moment, Nora feels the sting of truth. She wants to protest, to remind Libby that those contracts keep the lights on, that her reputation as a shark is the only reason they're safe. But then she sees Libby's smile falter, the way her hand drifts protectively over her stomach, and something unspoken lingers in the air. Nora doesn't press, not yet. Instead, she forces a smile and agrees. The next morning, she sets out with her sister, determined to check off the first item on the list. But Sunshine Falls has surprises of its own. At the local bookstore, its shelves stacked high with romance novels she's sold to the world. Nora freezes, because behind the counter in a perfectly tailored button-down is the last person she expected to see. Charlie Lastra, the same Charlie she once sparred with in a Manhattan boardroom. The same Charlie who dismissed one of her client's manuscripts with a smirk that still stings. His presence here in this postcard-perfect town feels like a cosmic joke. And when his eyes meet hers, equally startled, equally bristling with disdain, Nora realizes this summer getaway has just become far more complicated than she ever imagined. He says your name like an objection in a courtroom. Stephens. No smile, no handshake, just a measured look that cuts through the pixie lights and paperback glow. The bell over the door is still jangling when Libby squeezes your arm and whispers, "Is that?" You nod once. It is. Charlie Lastra, the editor whose notes arrive like scalpels, the man who can take apart a manuscript and leave only the living heart beating on the table. The same man who, months ago, said a certain small-town romance felt structurally dishonest and cosmetically charming, and whose cool certainty burrowed under your skin and sat there thrumming. He looks out of place in the store and somehow exactly right. His sleeves are rolled, forearms inked with the faint dust of unpacked boxes, a pencil tucked behind his ear like he forgot it existed. There's no city porte cochere to slide out of, no opaque black car idling. Just floors that creak and the smell of paper and cinnamon tea. You can see the surprise sharpen, then flatten into neutrality. You're far from your natural habitat, he says, and you're far from yours. You keep your voice even. No fluorescent lighting, no glass conference room, No interns fleeing your path. A corner of his mouth considers a smile and decides against it. He gestures to the half-stock display near the register. Temporary habitat. I'm helping my parents while my mother recovers. Schedules align. Life happens. The words are fact. Nothing to pry at, nothing to mock. You nod. Under the fluorescent brightness of your memory, he is usually armor. Here, the lighting is softer. It lands on the thudding question you won't ask. What does Charlie Lastra love enough to be pulled out of New York? Libby, irrepressible, sticks out a hand. I'm Libby. We're here on a sister mission, horses, pie, probably light trespassing. He takes the handshake, a quick flicker of warmth in his eyes. Noted. You browse to avoid him, drifting down aisles labeled with hand-painted signs. Mystery, romance, local authors. A chalkboard recommends staff picks in messy cursive. The silence between you and Charlie develops its own shape. Finally, he drifts over, a book in hand. He sets it on the counter without looking at you. Your client's latest, better. The second act finally breathes. The compliment lands like unfamiliar weather. You lift the book and see the threadwork you fought for. The line edits at 2 a.m, the phone calls that steadied the author when she wanted to toss the manuscript into the Hudson. I told you it wasn't cosmetically charming. I said the last one was. He meets your eyes. This one works. In progress, you say, and feel the strange air of truce like a door propped open with a paperback. Libby buys armfuls on optimism alone and drags you into the sun. The sidewalk heats through your sandals. Oh, he's trouble, she says dreamily. You two have sparks, static electricity and mutual disdain. You adjust your sunglasses like a shield. We're not a trope, Lib. Everyone is a trope, she says. That's the fun. The list asserts itself. Item 2. Try something you'd never try in the city. Libby votes for the farmer's market. You want email. Compromise looks like following her through a square shaded by oaks where stalls offer jars of honey, chilies strung like rubies, and peaches that carry summer in their scent. People talk with their whole faces. Someone hands you a slice of tomato on a paper plate and says, "Welcome," as if they mean the word. You keep checking your phone. The city nags through push notifications. A client spirals about a cover font. Another wants the ending softer, then harder, then softer with an edge. You step away to soothe fires because you are good at it. Because being good at it has kept you and Libby safe for years. When you return, Libby holds up a basket like a prize. Picnic, riverbank, today. You want to say you have calls. Instead, you let yourself be led. Beneath a willow, the river slips by in muscle and light. You sit on a faded quilt while Libby arranges cheese like a still life. She watches you, not your armor. You. You sleep? Define. Is your definition no? Sometimes. You pop a grape. The burst is more vivid than you expected. Works loud, and your head is louder, she says softly. Her hand flattens over her dress, the gesture small and repeated. You file it away with a quiet click, a clue you don't know how to decode yet. The day becomes town, a diner that swears by its biscuits, a hardware store that doubles as gossip exchange. Everywhere you go, eyes catch on you the way they do in cities too, but differently. Curiosity, not competition. You find yourself exhaling in increments. Evening levies its amber tax on the storefront glass. Back at the cottage, floorboards voice their complaints and then accept you. While Libby hums in the kitchen, you step onto the porch. The town is a scatter of porch lights and far-off laughter. You open your phone and compose 3 responses that sound like knives with apologies for handles, then delete them all. When you look up, he's on the sidewalk, 1 block away, closing the bookstore. He pockets keys and pauses, sensing the glance. Your throat does an oddly specific thing you can't name. The second encounter happens the next morning, not by design. Item 3 on the list is do manual labor. You decide paint qualifies. The bookstore front, you tell yourself, is community service and not cosmic interference. You show up with a coffee bribe and find him with drop cloths and a stubborn ladder. He eyes the coffee, then you. I didn't ask for a truce. It's not a truce, it's caffeine. You hand him a cup and set down a second tray. And a muffin with a morally compromising amount of butter. That's an argument I respect. He gestures at the trim. You paint clean edges? I negotiate clean edges. Same muscle group. His mouth almost smiles and this time doesn't retreat. You can tape. The work arranges you into parallel lines. Tape, brush, breathe. The quiet is more companionable than it has any right to be. Every so often he steps back and squints at the work like a copy edit, and you feel the familiar flicker of being graded. But you also feel something else. Exactness answering exactness, your favorite dialect. You trade small things. His parents bought the shop when he left for college. He came back when his mother's surgery needed more hands, and he stayed because recovery is a chapter, not a page. You offer in return the shape of your mother's absence without dragging grief into the room. After she died, I built a schedule and lived inside it. He nods like he understands schedules as architecture. I build edits and pretend it's the same. At lunch, Libby bursts in with sandwiches and a grin. She appraises the trim, the ladder, the slow drift of something unnamed in the room. Well, she says, I see community involvement is going well. She kisses your cheek and then Charlie's air adjacent, already folding him into the story with a familiarity that would make you roll your eyes if it didn't feel oddly right. By late afternoon, the storefront looks like intent, shiny, exact, ready to greet its readers. Your arms hum from effort, your phone has gone blessedly quiet, and the world feels scaled to a human size. He stands beside you, both of you admiring what is plainly just paint. Yet you feel the old city self recalibrate to include this improbable equation. You, him, a small square of sidewalk that smells like new. He breaks it. We disagreed about your client. We were both right in different drafts. You turn. That's your version of an apology? That's my version of truth. A pause. You fight for your authors like it costs you something. It does, you say before you can stop the admission. The honesty startles you. But that's the point. Something flickers in his expression. Recognition? Respect. The not-quite smile returns. Then you'll understand this. I don't dislike small towns or big-hearted books. I dislike shortcuts. Same, you say. The word feels like stepping onto steady ground. Libby's checklist leans against the window in purple ink. Tonight she's circled a new item. Attend a town thing. The town thing turns out to be trivia at the bar. Neon, wood, laughter that hangs in strands from the rafters. You and Libby take a table. Charlie's team is short one. He tips his head toward the open chair like an invitation that might bite. You join anyway. Questions fly. Obscure authors, opening lines, pen names, the room heats with friendly warfare. Your team runs on precision and sarcasm. He throws you a question you love like a dare. You volley it back and watch his eyes flash bright and quick. The last round ends on a lightning question. Your hand moves before you think. The answer lands clean. The bell rings. Cheers. Someone buys a round. Libby whoops and hugs you so hard your ribs remember being a sister before being anything else. When it's done, you all spill onto the sidewalk. Summer presses close. He stands with his hands in his pockets and that considered look that catalogs, revises, keeps only what matters. You're good, he says. Always. You say it lightly, then let a sliver of real in. It's easier when someone on my team speaks my language. He nods like a contract sealed without pen or witness. See you tomorrow, Stephens. Not a question. A line in a book you want to keep reading. Back at the cottage, Libby locks the door and leans against it, triumphant. Tell me you felt that. Felt what? That you can be the heroine without shrinking. that someone can meet you where you live. Her hand moves to her stomach again, protective by instinct. Tell me you're letting yourself have a different chapter. You look at your phone, silent on the counter. At the window, the town is a galaxy of porch bulbs. You admit nothing and everything at once by turning the phone face down. In the glass, your reflection loses its hard edges and grows human again. Tomorrow there will be emails, schedules, and a list with horses and stars. There will also be a bookstore door you now know how to open, a voice that calls your name without sanding it down, and the possibility that this story is not about the woman who gets left, but about the woman who chooses. The road into town curves like a ribbon unspooling, leading you and Libby deeper into the green heart of North Carolina. The air is thick with pine and wildflowers, sweeter than anything drifting between New York skyscrapers. Your phone has no signal, and for once the silence between you and your sister isn't filled with her questions about your clients or your calendar. She's leaning out the window, hair flying, laughing as though the whole world is her own backyard. Sunshine Falls announces itself with a hand-painted sign that leans at a jaunty angle, its paint chipped but cheerful. The town looks like it was carved from the pages of every manuscript you've ever negotiated. Brick storefronts with striped awnings, a diner promising the best pie in the state, and a main street where the pace slows to a lazy heartbeat. You almost laugh because, of course, this is the town Libby chose. It's the very place where one of your most successful authors set her beloved romance novel. A town of second chances. A town for heroines who look nothing like you. You roll your suitcase up the gravel path to the cottage you'll be sharing. It sits at the edge of town, white clapboard peeling, porch swing dangling slightly crooked, ivy climbing up the railing like it's reclaiming its territory. Inside, the kitchen smells faintly of citrus cleaner, and the mismatched dishes wobble in the cupboards. The bathroom sink groans when you turn the faucet. Libby's eyes shine, though, as if she's stumbled into a fairy tale. "This is exactly what I wanted," she says, collapsing onto the couch with a sigh of satisfaction. You smile, small but genuine. The truth is, you'd trade all the gingham curtains and fireflies in the world for a corner office and a black car waiting outside. But then you remember why you came. For her. For this chance to rewind time. To be the big sister you weren't sure you'd ever get to be again. The next morning, Libby drags you toward the little bookshop she circled in her checklist. The bell above the door chimes and you step inside to the smell of old paper and dust motes spinning through sunbeams. For a moment, you forget to breathe. The shelves stretch like cathedral walls packed with stories you know too well. Your own clients' names gleam on the spines and your chest swells with the quiet pride of recognition. Then a voice cuts across the stillness, low, familiar, too familiar. Of course, you'd be here. You whip around, heart stuttering, and there he is, Charlie Lastra. He looks less like the sleek editor from Manhattan and more like a man who belongs in the very novels he edits. Rolled sleeves, dark hair falling across his forehead, a faintly amused glint in his eyes that you'd like to wipe away. "Lastra." You force the word out as coolly as you can. "Stephens." He matches your tone. His mouth quirks in that almost smile, the one you used to hate across the conference table. Libby looks between you with a grin blooming on her face, already piecing together a narrative you refuse to acknowledge. You pretend not to notice her delight, scanning the shelves instead. But your heart is a live wire. You remind yourself, this summer is for Libby, not for you. Your job is to help her live her small-town dreams. So you plaster on a smile, tuck your phone into your bag, and step out into the golden light of Sunshine Falls. Trying not to think about the fact that the most unexpected chapter of your life may have just begun. The door of the bookstore shuts behind you, but Charlie lingers like a shadow you can't shake. Even out on the street, you feel the weight of his gaze, the memory of his dry voice dismissing your authors months ago. Libby hums beside you, basket swinging from her arm as if she's orchestrated some grand collision you're only just catching on to. You didn't tell me he was here, you murmur. I didn't know, she insists, though her mischievous smile betrays her. And even if I had, maybe I wouldn't have warned you. He's exactly what this trip is about. This trip is about you, you remind her, sharper than you mean to. Not me. You wanted to escape before the baby comes. I'm just the plus one. Libby softens. Or maybe I wanted us both to breathe again. You can't work every second of your life, Nor. You shove your phone deeper into your bag, silencing its insistent buzz. Watch me. But the next day, when you stop by the bookstore to return the stack of novels Libby devoured in one sitting, Charlie is there again. This time he doesn't wait behind the counter. He leans against a shelf, arms crossed, eyes steady. You're really committing to the bit, he says. City shark on vacation. And you're really committing to the small-town disguise. You gesture to his rolled sleeves, the casual stance. Do you even own a tie anymore? A faint smirk. Do you ever take yours off? You want to walk away, but something keeps you rooted. Maybe it's the challenge. Maybe it's the spark beneath his sarcasm, a spark you shouldn't feel, not here, not now. Libby's list floats in your memory. Go on a date with a local. You refuse to give her the satisfaction. And yet, as you watch him reshelve books with meticulous precision, you realize you might already be tangled in a story you swore you would never live. The list appears at breakfast like a spell written in purple ink. Libby unfurls the paper with two flourishes, the way a magician reveals the last scarf. Sunshine leaks through the kitchen window and tints the page gold. At the top, she has written the ultimate small-town transformation checklist, and beneath it are boxes that make your chest tighten and your mouth try to smile at the same time. Ride a horse. Save a struggling business. Make a friend who isn't trying to network. Do a good deed anonymously. Swim at dusk. Learn one person's secret and keep it. Kiss under the stars. Absolutely not, you say. And then you read the list again because parts of it sound impossible and parts of it sound like oxygen. Libby props her chin on her palm, eyes bright. Pick 3 to start. Dealer's choice. If you hate it, we revise. Like an edit letter, friendly, supportive. No crying in the bathroom. You cried at 3 edit letters last year. And then I was fine. Resilience is a muscle. She taps the paper. So is joy. You fold the list as if it might bite, tuck it into your tote as if it might fly away. Your phone pings. 3 clients, 1 crisis. You don't open it. You stand, rinse your mug, and say, fine, 1 horse. By noon, you are astride an animal that looks like it eats fear for enrichment. The stable smells like hay and sunlight and the earthy certainty of creatures that do not care about New York. A teenager with a serene face shows you how to sit, how to signal with your knees, how to trust muscle and momentum. At the first sway forward, you grab the saddle horn, every city instinct rioting. Absolutely not, you whisper a second time. Then the horse steps into a slow walk and your body reorganizes around the motion. The world widens. Trees make a green cathedral. A dragonfly stitches the air. Libby rides ahead, whooping like a girl on summer vacation. There is a moment, just one, when your grip loosens and the breath goes all the way down, when the animal's steady rhythm sings to a quieter part of you. You do not become a different person. You do not forget the office or your hunger for the work that made you. But the edges blur, the checklist has drawn a door, you note it without promise, after you check off ride a horse with a line as crisp as a contract signature. Libby makes you draw a tiny star beside it. For fun, she says. Try it. It won't reduce your market share. The afternoon tilts toward heat. For item 2, do a good deed anonymously. You argue that donating to the library foundation counts. Libby argues that the point is to touch the town with your hands. You compromise at the food pantry behind the church, where boxes of produce sweat in their cardboard and volunteers speak to one another like old songs. A woman named Mrs. Pritchard gives you gloves and a smile and shows you how to sort greens from the leaves gone to slime. It is not glamorous. It is quiet work, useful as a clean sentence. You find yourself humming under your breath. At one point, a little boy peeks around a stack of crates and asks if you are famous. "Only to my sister," you say. He decides that is enough. When you are done, you slide an envelope into the donation jar with only "thank you" written on the outside. You do not sign your name. You do not take a picture. You let the anonymity sit in your chest like a new kind of pride. On the walk back, Libby slows without meaning to, one hand straying to her stomach. She has done this all day like a reflex she can't hide. You file it with the other clues, the naps she never used to take, the way she orders ginger ale and pretends it's a choice, the softening behind her eyes when a baby carriage rolls by. "You good?" you ask, keeping your voice neutral as a margin note. Good," she says. "Just a little tired. It's a lot of sister time. My heart can't keep up." She threads her arm through yours. "It missed you." You tell her you were always there, even when you weren't. She squeezes once hard and answers as if you have confessed something. "I know. For item 3, save a struggling business, the town hands you a beginning with the grace of a plot twist." The florist's window on the corner is half empty, a hand-lettered sign apologizing for supply issues and shorter hours. Inside, a woman in her 60s battles a credit card reader with the same expression you use on predatory clauses. You and Libby buy a ridiculous bouquet and a potted basil you will probably kill. As the receipt prints in slow agony, the woman sighs. "My daughter helps with the website when she can. She's got 3 kids and a commute. I keep meaning to figure out the Insta, the what. You know. You also know margins and cash flow and the way a visual feed can be a lifeline if someone who understands storytelling touches it. You hear yourself say, "We can help for a week. Window refresh, photo days, product bundles, no charge." The woman's eyes fill in a way that panics you and steadies you at once. "People say that and mean for exposure," she says. "You mean it like a gift." You shrug to make it smaller. "I'm better with deadlines than flowers." "We can learn both," Libby says, already in project mode. She has always been your counterpart, the bright to your blade. The two of you spend an hour sketching a plan on the back of a paper bag. When you leave, the woman insists on tucking a single white peony into your bouquet. "For luck," she says, "and for sisters." You carry the flower like a talisman down Main Street. The air tastes like sugar and cut stems. You are aware of the bookstore across the square the way you are aware of your own pulse. You tell yourself not to look. You do not listen. Through the glass, you can see him on a step stool, stacking hardcovers into a precise geometry. He looks up as if he felt the tilt of your attention. The distance between you holds. He raises a hand in a minimalist salute. You tilt the peony like a joke, your version of hello. "Friendly," Libby says, not bothering to hide her glee. "Efficient," you counter. "We are building community ties for the florist project." "You are ridiculous," she says fondly, "and also happy." You start to deny it, you stop. The denial would cost energy you don't want to spend. Temporarily less braced. Progress," she says, echoing a word you didn't know you wanted to hear. Evening brings heat lightning and a sky the color of ripe plums. Libby circles swim at dusk and draws a heart beside it. You threaten to set the list on fire. 20 minutes later, you are standing at the river's edge in a borrowed suit, the water black and soft around your calves, cicadas turning the trees into a chorus. You hate every second that your feet cannot find purchase and love every second your mind goes quiet to listen. Libby wades in beside you, both of you laughing at the cold gulp of it. The way you yelp in the same note you did as girls. "Close your eyes," she tells you. "Count to 10. Pretend time is elastic. You close them. The water presses your skin like a long sentence that finally breaks into a period. When you open your eyes, the first stars are out. You're shivering, and you are not thinking about email. On the walk home, barefoot, shoes hooked in your fingers, you ask, as if it is offhand, "If there were something you needed to tell me, you'd tell me, right?" Libby watches the sky where a flicker of lightning ghosts behind the clouds. "Yes," she says. When the scene is ready, you accept the answer the way you accept that a draft must reveal itself on its own timeline. Still, your chest answers with a protective throb. You will not press. You will simply stay. Back at the cottage, you hang the damp towels, pour iced tea, and sit on the porch steps with the list spread across your knees. 3 neat check marks. A flower in a jar glows like a small moon on the railing. Fireflies stipple the yard with punctuation. Your phone lies face down on the table, and for once it does not feel like rebellion. It feels like choosing. Libby waddles out with a blanket and drops it over your shoulders. "Tomorrow?" she asks, and when you tilt your head, she reads from the list as if from a prophecy. Make a friend you're not trying to network with. Learn one person's secret and keep it. She pauses, then grins, "And time permitting, kiss under the stars." "You are impossible. I am an excellent producer." She kisses your temple and rests her head on your shoulder. You don't have to be softer to be loved. You know that, right? You let the words live in the air between you. The peony leans toward the night, extravagant and unapologetic. In your mind, a storefront window fills with flowers. A caption writes itself without hashtags. A man you refuse to define locks a door across the square and looks up at the same sky. When you finally turn the list over, the back is blank, waiting for revisions, additions, scenes you haven't imagined. You find a pen and write in small print along the edge, almost too quiet to see. Keep her safe. Then, because the muscle exists and you are learning how to use it, you add another line. Let yourself be kept safe, too. The porch light hums. The river moves. Somewhere a bell rings the hour. You breathe. You are still yourself. All sharp lines and schedules and the need to get things right. You are also impossibly a woman who rode a horse, packed tomatoes, promised a florist a plan, and swam in dusk light while the day let go of its grip. The list is not turning you into someone else. It is letting you walk through a different door in the house you already are. House you already are. House you already are. House you already are. House you already. The days slip past like pages turning in a book you can't put down. Sunshine Falls is quieter than the city, yet the silence hums with its own life. Crickets chanting at dusk, the low chime of the church bell, the whisper of river water against stone. And everywhere you go, as if fate is writing him into your margins, there is Charlie Lastra. It begins innocently. At the hardware store, you find him lugging lumber with the same grim efficiency he brings to editing. At the coffee shop, he is in line ahead of you, correcting the spelling on a hand-lettered chalkboard menu. At the library, he is already there, sleeves rolled up, cataloging a shipment of new arrivals. Each time, the air between you sharpens with a mix of friction and something perilously close to anticipation. Your conversations are skirmishes disguised as small talk. "You do realize," he says as you both stock books on a high shelf, "this is the opposite of a vacation." "I'm not on vacation," you reply, balancing on the step stool. "I'm on forced rural immersion." Catchy, that'll sell. Not everything is a sales pitch. It is if you're doing it right. He looks up at you, eyebrow raised. "Though I'll admit you tape straighter lines than anyone I've ever met." It's unsettling. You want to retort, but Libby appears, arms full of sunflowers, beaming at the sight of you two mid-banter. "Look at you making friends," she declares. "Rivals, you correct." "Co-conspirators," Charlie offers. The word lodges in your chest. Co-conspirators. As if you're already writing the same story, even if you argue over the adjectives. And then, as if summoned by Libby's list, the florist calls. She's behind on her shop revamp and needs help with the new window display. Libby claps her hands together. This is it. Save a small business. She points at you, then at Charlie like a director blocking a scene. You two, you're perfect for this. You protest. Charlie folds his arms. I don't do arts and crafts. You cut people's art into pieces for a living. You shoot back. How different can it be? His eyes flash with challenge. Fine. But if we're doing this, it's going to be done properly. No hot glue gun disasters. Hours later, the three of you are knee-deep in tissue paper and twine. Libby arranges the flowers like a wild meadow. Charlie critiques the spacing of every vase. You take control of the narrative, weaving his precision with her whimsy until the window becomes a story in itself. Sunlight falling over bright blooms, stacks of novels arranged like stepping stones, a single lantern casting warm light over it all. When Mrs. Pritchard sees it, her eyes shine with gratitude. For the first time in a long while, you feel the same quiet satisfaction that comes from sending an author's finished book into the world. You're not in New York. You're not even in your office. But the triumph in your chest is unmistakable. As you step back from the window, you find Charlie watching you. Not with disdain, but with something softer, something unreadable. You can't help yourself. You raise an eyebrow. Happy with the margins? He doesn't look away. For once, the air between you is charged. The kind of electricity that could light an entire city, or set a small town on fire. You turn before it can spark, pretending to study the peonies in the glass. Libby, of course, doesn't miss a thing. She scribbles on her list with a flourish, another heart blooming beside make a friend who isn't trying to network. That night, as you and Libby walk home under a sky tangled with stars, you wonder who exactly you are in this story. The ruthless city woman, or the heroine who dares to stay? And when you hear a low laugh from behind and glance back to see Charlie falling into step with you, you realize you don't have an answer. Not yet, but maybe, just maybe, you're ready to find out. Morning drapes itself in gold across the cottage windows. But you wake not to light, rather to the muffled sound of Libby pacing in the kitchen. She's whispering into her phone, her voice softer than usual, weighted with something she doesn't want you to hear. By the time you step into the room, she's smiling too brightly, shoving her phone into her pocket as if she's been caught. Coffee's on, she says, and pancakes with blueberries because, you know, small town aesthetic. You narrow your eyes. You were on the phone. Yeah, just confirming horseback lessons for, you know, item 4. She pushes a plate toward you, syrup already poured. Eat. You let it go for now. But the memory of her palm on her stomach keeps nudging at you like a bookmark you can't ignore. Later that day, Sunshine Falls invites you into its rhythm again. The grocery store is more gathering place than market. People pause in the aisles just to talk about weather or gardens or whose kid is learning to ride a bike. At the register, you overhear 2 women worrying about the future of the local bookshop. If the Lastras can't keep it open, what chance do the rest of us have? One whispers. The words settle heavily in you. You think of Charlie, sleeves rolled up, eyes shadowed with fatigue as he shelved books that probably won't sell. You shouldn't care. This is not your business. Yet Libby nudges your ribs, her gaze daring you to deny the significance. Another box on her list, another story you don't want to admit you're already inside. By afternoon, you find yourself standing in the bookstore again, sunlight angling through the front window. Charlie is muttering at a stack of invoices, jaw tight. You're not built for small towns, you say without thinking. He glances up. And you are? Hardly, but I am built for saving businesses. You pull the papers closer before he can stop you, scanning numbers the way other people scan faces. Your overhead's choking you. You're ordering like it's Midtown Manhattan. His jaw ticks. I know how to run a store. You know how to run a publishing house. Different beast. Let me help. He studies you for a long moment, then exhales through his nose. You don't do things halfway, do you? No, you say, do you? A pause. Then he slides the papers toward you, surrender disguised as strategy. The hours vanish in lists and margins, in stock counts and marketing ideas. You discover the rhythm of collaboration. His meticulous edits balancing your relentless drive, your sharp edges cutting paths through problems he didn't see solutions for. It is not easy. You argue over font choices, over shelf placement, over whether small-town residents actually want a poetry section. But underneath every spar is a current pulling you closer without permission. At one point you reach for the same stack of books and your hands collide. His fingers brush yours, brief, accidental but charged enough to make you stumble. He steadies you with a hand at your elbow, and for a heartbeat the air between you stills. Then he steps back as if he's the one who can't afford the contact. That night the bar hums again with locals, but Libby sends you on a different mission. Learn one person's secret and keep it. You sit on the porch of the diner with a plate of peach pie, and an older man lowers himself onto the bench beside you. He wears a ball cap pulled low, his hands stained with soil, stained. "You're Nora Stephens," he says without looking at you. You brace for judgment, but his voice is gentle. "You're the one helping out at the florist. My wife cried when she told me." You manage a small smile. "I didn't do much." "Doesn't take much," he says, still gazing at the horizon. "Sometimes all people need is to know they aren't invisible." His voice cracks, and for a moment he looks smaller, folded inward. "My daughter's thinking of moving. I don't know how to tell her I don't want her to go." You feel the words land like stones in your chest because they echo something you've been refusing to hear. You nod, not promising anything, not offering solutions. Just listening. For once, you are not negotiating. You are simply present. When he rises to leave, he tips his cap. "Thank you for listening. That's all I needed." You watch him go, the night folding in around you. The stars are sharp enough to cut. And somewhere across the street, a light flickers in the bookstore. You know who's still awake, working past midnight, chasing perfection through paper and ink. You tell yourself not to cross the street. You tell yourself Libby's list is just a game. But your feet itch with the urge to knock on that locked door, to ask Charlie what secrets he carries and whether he'd let you carry them too. You find the secret because the cottage creaks at the wrong hour. Morning hasn't fully arrived, but the river has begun its quiet rehearsal and the sky is the color of a pressed bruise. You wake to the sound of drawers opening, closing, opening again. Libby is in the kitchen in a sweatshirt that hangs off one shoulder, hair in a messy knot riffling through the junk drawer with the panic of someone who has lost something more important than keys. "What did we misplace?" you ask, voice sanded by sleep. She jolts and slams the drawer shut. "Nothing, I mean just the grocery list." You nod like you believe her. You don't. The lie is too gentle, too practiced. She pours orange juice and doesn't drink it. Her hand finds her stomach. There it is again, the unconscious sheltering gesture that has bookmarked every day since you arrived. By noon, the town is a syrup of heat. You're at the florist scheduling a photo day for the new bouquets when Libby texts a sun emoji and a heart, then vanishes from the thread. Hours later, she's still quiet. You tell yourself she's napping. You tell yourself not to hover. You tell yourself this is what trust looks like. Evening pushes light through the cottage windows like gold leaf. You step inside and find a file folder open on the dining table, not yours, not deliberately hidden. Just left, as if the story inside refused to be contained any longer. A realtor's card clips the corner. Inside, printed listings for houses in Sunshine Falls, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, yard big enough for a swing set. A mortgage pre-approval letter peeks out like a whisper. There is a schedule, too. Doctor's appointments in tidy rows, dates circled in pink. One of them is tomorrow morning. OB. You stare until the letters stop being letters and become the shape of a life you didn't know you were already inside. The front door snaps open. Libby stops when she sees the folder in your hands. You look up and your voices, when they come, are careful, like stepping in a dark room. "You were going to tell me?" you ask. Not an accusation, not yet. A request shaped like a question. Her chin lifts with the courage of a younger sister who learned it from you. "Yes." When I could say it without turning it into your job. You flip the folder closed with a soft click. "Which part?" She exhales. "All of it. A beat. I'm pregnant." The word lands like a bell tolling from inside both of you. Relief and fear and joy and something aching its way into the open. "And we're moving. Here." She gestures at the walls, the town, the river, the sky. "To Sunshine Falls, we're buying a house." You sit because standing feels like a dare against gravity. A memory surfaces. Your mother's laugh, a kitchen where sunlight pooled on the tile, a promise you made to an empty apartment the night you signed the lease. That you would keep Libby safe, that you would be the net the world forgot to provide. "Why didn't you tell me?" Your voice is softer than you expect. She swallows. "Because you fix things. You find problems and you solve them, and sometimes I need to stumble without you wrapping me in bubble wrap. I wanted to know if this dream was mine before it became our plan. You feel the truth of it like a bruise you don't want to touch. You think I would have talked you out of it. I think you would have made a spreadsheet and then a better spreadsheet." A smile ghosts at her mouth and vanishes. "And maybe you would have been right on paper. But I've been living on paper for a long time. Budgets, childcare calendars, the math of what we can't drop. I wanted to try living in a place where we have room." The word room does strange things to your chest. You look at the listings again, porches, trees, bedrooms that echo with possibilities. "How far along?" 16 weeks, she says, and the number expands the room. "I wanted to tell you with a pie or a banner or something absurd. I wanted to see your face without the world competing for it." She moves closer. "I also wanted to see if you could be happy here without feeling like I had tricked you into it." You put a hand over your eyes and laugh once ragged. "You did trick me." Her smile cracks wide. "A little." Then her face sobers. "Nora, I need this. The girls need this, and I want you to be okay with me wanting it." You lower your hand. "I want you safe," you say, plain and true. "I want you stupidly happy." You swallow. "I just thought the world where that happens would be the one where I can keep seeing you every day." "We're not leaving each other," she says, fierce and immediate. "We're just changing our commute. It's not the distance you fear. It's the silence that might grow in the space where your daily tasks used to stack. Who will you be if you are not always the one catching falling dishes before they shatter?" Libby takes your hand with the same certainty you used to give her. "Listen to me. You did the impossible. You grew both of us into women who can choose. I need you to trust that you didn't make me fragile by loving me." The room blurs. You blink it steady. "And the job, the money? We did the math," she says. "And yes, you can still be the shark. Sharks migrate." A playful nudge. "Plus, there's a certain broody editor who knows how to send a manuscript to your cave." You groan. "Do not bring him into this." "I will bring him into everything until you admit you like him." She squeezes your hand before you can protest. "But that's secondary. What's primary is this." She tugs your palm to her stomach, light as a promise. Beneath your fingers is just the curve of her, not a kick or flutter yet, but the idea of one. "I wanted to make a home where chaos doesn't eat us. A place where the kids can make noise without apologizing. Where you can come to dinner and put your phone in a drawer and know the world won't end. You don't realize you're crying until one tear wets the heel of your hand." Libby sees it and moves in, forehead to yours like you're two halves of the same prayer. "We're okay," she says. "We're going to be okay." You nod, the motion small and seismic. "You should have told me sooner," you say, because the truth still wants its due. I should have, she agrees, and the agreement threads mending through the moment. Will you come with me tomorrow? Doctor's appointment. I want you there. Yes, you say, and the word loosens a knot that's been holding you together for years. Of course. Later, when the house is quiet and the folder is tucked away, you step onto the porch for air that doesn't know anything about deadlines. The river speaks its patient language. Across the street, a single light burns in the bookstore. You don't plan the walk. You simply find your feet moving. The bell over the door offers a shy ring as you push it open. He looks up from the counter, tired and warm at once. Stephens. A pause as his gaze takes in your face. Bad day? True day, you say, and you hear how strange and correct it sounds. You cross to the counter and flatten your palms on the wood. My sister's pregnant. His expression shifts the way a sky does before a summer storm. Surprise, then understanding, then a quiet that isn't empty. That's a lot of story. It is. You glance at the stacks of inventory sheets, the ink on his fingers, the little constellation of coffee rings on a legal pad. They're moving here. His mouth tips. I heard rumors Sunshine Falls was a good place to raise a plot. You huff out a laugh. I'm not sure where I fit. The admission lands between you like an unarmed truth. He takes a breath like he is choosing a sentence carefully. Where you fit doesn't have to be where you shrink. He gestures at the back door. Walk? You circle the building to the alley that opens onto the river. Night has braided itself with crickets and the soft pluck of water against stone. You lean on the railing and tell him more than you meant to. About the folder, about your mother, about the old vow to hold the world together with your two hands. He listens the way he edits, cutting silence around the important parts, keeping what matters. When you finish, he doesn't offer solutions. He says you are allowed to be more than the person who prevents disaster. Then softer. And you're allowed to want things that aren't on anyone's checklist. You look at him, at the river, at the dark lace of trees. The town feels different with the secret spoken aloud, as if it has widened to hold this new shape of your life. Your chest aches, yes, but the ache is a fuller kind, like lungs learning a deeper breath. Tomorrow, you say, there's an appointment. After I'm coming by to redo your front table. You're showcasing too many hardcovers for a town this size. His smile is small and real. Co-conspirators, then. Something like that. You walk back through the square together, not touching, but close enough that the night arranges you into the same sentence. When you part at the corner, he says your name like the answer to a question only you asked. You turn toward the cottage, and for the first time since the folder opened, the future feels like a room with more than one door. Inside, Libby sleeps on the couch, one hand curled over the quiet of her belly, the other holding your list like a talisman. You cover her with a blanket and stand there a long time, cataloging the details the way you catalog pages. Breathing, blanket edge, the steady rise and fall of someone you love. Then you take the list and add in neat letters under the last item a new one. Show up for the appointment. Show up after. You check both boxes in advance, not as wishful thinking, but as a promise you know you will keep. The morning of Libby's appointment dawns heavy with mist, the river hidden beneath a white veil that clings to the trees. You walk with her to the small clinic on the edge of town, each step weighted with the gravity of what you now know. The waiting room smells faintly of antiseptic and coffee, magazines curling on a low table. Libby's hand finds yours and you squeeze it, steady as you've always been, even as your heart trips over itself. When the doctor wheels in the ultrasound machine, the world shifts. Gel, cold against Libby's skin. The whir of the device. Then there it is. A rhythmic thrum, tiny and urgent, filling the room like a drumbeat from beneath the earth. You've heard 1,000 stories about new life, edited countless novels where characters gasp at this exact sound. But nothing prepares you for the real thing, for the way Libby's eyes flood, for the way your throat tightens as if your body is trying to memorize the heartbeat itself. Later, back at the cottage, Libby tacks the printout to the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a peach. You stand there, staring at the shadowy curve on the page until you realize you've forgotten to breathe again. "That's my niece or nephew," you whisper. "Our little plot twist," Libby says, smiling through tears. The words lodge deep, but before you can answer, your phone buzzes. New York calling, a client in crisis, the city tugging at your sleeve. You silence it, but not before Libby notices. She doesn't say anything, only arches an eyebrow. The silence is pointed but not unkind. You flee the kitchen, promising yourself you'll return to the call later. But instead of opening your laptop, your feet take you across town to the bookstore. The bell jingles and Charlie looks up, hair rumpled, shirt rolled at the sleeves. The sight of him steadies you in a way you don't want to name. "You're early?" he says. "I needed a project." You hold up a notebook. "Your front table is a disaster." He steps aside with mock solemnity. "By all means, wield your terrifying efficiency." The next few hours pass in a blur of paper and laughter and too close brushes of hands. You rearrange displays, pairing romance novels with wildflowers, stacking paperbacks like stepping stones. He critiques your angles. You snap back about his obsession with serif fonts. The banter feels like sparring, but the edges are softer now, edged with amusement rather than disdain. At one point, he hands you a box from the stockroom and your fingers brush again. This time, neither of you pulls away. The contact is brief, electric, enough to send heat climbing into your cheeks. You drop the box on the counter with more force than necessary. "You're impossible," you mutter. He smiles, slow and knowing. "And yet you keep showing up." You want to argue. You want to remind him that this is all part of Libby's checklist, that you're only here to help a struggling business. But the words die in your throat when you see the weariness etched around his eyes, the way his shoulders sag when he thinks no one is watching. For the first time you realize the armor he wears looks a lot like your own. That evening, the three of you sit at the riverbank, sandwiches in hand. The sky painted in streaks of coral and violet. Libby leans against you, her head on your shoulder, while Charlie sits across, fiddling with a blade of grass. The air hums with cicadas and something unspoken. Libby breaks the silence first. "You know what's left on the list, right?" She wiggles her brows at you, mischievous. "Kiss under the stars." You choke on your sandwich. Charlie's head jerks up, eyes flicking between you and your sister. "Libby," you warn. "What?" She spreads her hands innocently. "I didn't say with who." Then she grins wide and wicked. "But I'm rooting for the obvious choice." The words hang there, daring you to catch them, daring you to admit what you feel when Charlie looks at you like he sees more than the armor. The river glimmers with starlight. His gaze lingers a second too long. And for once, you don't look away. The starlight feels almost theatrical, as though the universe itself has staged the scene. The river glimmers, the willows sway, and Libby's checklist hovers between you and Charlie like a dare written across the night. Kiss under the stars. The box is still unchecked, the ink waiting. You laugh it off at first, deflecting with a quip. "Sorry, Lib, I left my Prince Charming back in Manhattan." But Charlie doesn't smile the way he usually does when you throw barbs. His gaze stays fixed on you, steady and unreadable, as if he's considering whether to cross a line. Libby yawns theatrically, rising with exaggerated weariness. "Well, I'm going to bed before I collapse. You two, don't stay out too late." She leaves her sandwich wrapper in your lap like a signature at the bottom of a scene, then ambles up the hill toward the cottage, humming to herself. Now it's just you and him, the night pressed tight around your shoulders. The silence is heavier without Libby's chatter to fill it, but it isn't empty. It's charged. Charlie tilts his head back, eyes on the sky. You know, I've read 100 books where this exact moment happens. Two people under the stars. A list. A kiss. Always feels contrived on the page. And in real life, you ask, voice quieter than you mean it to be. He looks at you then, really looks, as if the bookstore's dim lamplight has followed him here, illuminating only the space between you. In real life, it feels inevitable. Your pulse skips. The word lands with dangerous weight. Inevitable. The very thing you've spent your life resisting, being slotted into someone else's narrative, playing the role you never chose. You open your mouth to retreat into sarcasm, but instead what comes out is softer, rawer. I don't do small towns or fairy tales or this. I don't either, he says, and the honesty in his voice is like a mirror. I don't do soft endings or easy fixes, but maybe it doesn't have to be easy to be real. The truth of it slices clean. You feel it in your chest, in the ache of years spent building walls. And then, before you can second guess, you lean across the space between you. The kiss is not delicate. It is sharp and sure, an argument turned into agreement. A collision of two people who never meant to want this and can't stop themselves. His hand finds your jaw, your fingers knot in his shirt, and the night folds around you like a secret. When you break apart, breathless, the stars above seem brighter, or maybe it's just the way your vision wavers. He keeps his forehead against yours for a beat, steadying both of you. Well, he says finally, voice roughened. Guess that's another box checked. You huff a laugh, though your throat is tight. Don't flatter yourself. That was purely administrative. Sure, he murmurs, but the curve of his mouth says he doesn't believe you. Walking back through the quiet streets, you keep your arms crossed as if to hold yourself together, but your lips still tingle. Every storefront seems different now. Every porch light brighter. The town is no longer just a backdrop for Libby's adventure. It has become a stage where you, the so-called shark, are being written into scenes you never allowed yourself before. Yet when the cottage comes into view, when you see Libby's silhouette in the upstairs window, the weight of choice slams back into you. This isn't only about checklists and starlit kisses. There's New York, with its skyscrapers and contracts and the life you built brick by brick. And there's here, with your sister's growing secret, with a bookstore that might not survive, with a man who looks at you like you're not a villain but a possibility. Two worlds, both demanding. Two versions of you, both unfinished drafts. And sooner than you want, you will have to decide which story you are willing to live. The morning after the kiss, the world feels sharper, as if the air itself has taken notice. You wake before Libby, her soft breathing steady in the next room, and step onto the porch with your coffee. The river is glass, reflecting a sky still pink at the edges. For a few precious minutes you let yourself feel it, the echo of his mouth on yours, the warmth that still lingers along your jaw, the word inevitable humming in your veins. But your phone won't stay silent. A client's manuscript is unraveling and your inbox is a litany of demands. New York pulling. The city never sleeps and it never stops needing. You scroll through the messages, your pulse accelerating the way it always does when someone else's career dangles in your hands. This is who you are, the woman who fixes, who fights, who never lets a single plate crash to the floor. By the time Libby pads into the kitchen, you've already drafted 3 emails and a crisis strategy. She sets a mug on the table beside you. You're glowing, she says, casual as buttering toast. I don't glow, I strategize. Her smile is sly. Strategize all you want. I can still see it. Her gaze lingers on your mouth and heat crawls up your neck. She doesn't press, though. Instead, she picks up the checklist, tapping the star-kissed box with satisfaction. Progress. The day is filled with obligations you can't avoid. You video call clients from the porch, whispering reassurances while cicadas trill around you. You draft contracts between farmers' market trips and Libby's doctor appointment. The balance is precarious, like standing on a tightrope between two skyscrapers, one foot in the city, one in the town. And then there is Charlie. You see him at the bookstore that afternoon, sleeves rolled, hair mussed, a stack of paperbacks in his hands. The memory of the kiss flares between you like a lit match. He doesn't mention it. Neither do you. Instead, you argue about shelving order, about font choices for the new signage, about whether to stock more romance novels. On the surface, it's the same sparring you've always done. But beneath every word is the unspoken truth. You have crossed a line, and there is no way back. Later, Libby leaves you no choice. She hands you the list again, her finger pressing against the final unchecked item. Find where you belong. You want to laugh. You want to tell her belonging is a myth, a plot device for people who don't know how brutal the world can be. But then you see the ultrasound photo on the refrigerator, the curve of possibility pinned beneath a peach magnet. You hear the echo of that tiny heartbeat. You remember the feel of Charlie's hand steadying yours. And for the first time, the question doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like a story you might have the power to write yourself. That evening, you and Charlie walk home together, the town glowing in twilight. He carries a bag of unsold books, and you carry the knowledge that your life is tilting on its axis. You'll go back, he says quietly, not as an accusation, but as a certainty. The city needs you. And what about you? You ask. Don't you need it too? He shrugs, gaze fixed on the horizon where the sun is bleeding out. I thought I did. But then my mom got sick and I realized maybe I needed to stop running long enough to know what I wanted. He glances at you, and for a moment the honesty in his eyes is almost too much. Maybe I'm still figuring it out. You want to tell him that you're the same. That you've spent so long living in service to everyone else's stories that you don't know how to write your own. But the words lodge in your throat, too heavy to lift. When you reach the cottage, Libby is waiting on the porch, blanket around her shoulders, the list in her lap. She looks at the two of you, her smile soft, not teasing this time. You don't have to decide tonight, she says. But you will. Because the story won't let you stay in the middle forever. The truth of it hums through the air like that heartbeat still echoing in your memory. You stand between them. Your sister, your anchor, your responsibility, and Charlie, your rival turned co-conspirator, your kiss under the stars. The city looms in your chest, tall and demanding. The town waits, quiet and steady. And for the first time, you wonder if belonging isn't about choosing one world over the other, but about claiming both. About refusing to be anyone's background character ever again. The call that decides the week arrives before sunrise, when mist still stitches the river to the trees and the cottage is quiet enough to hear the refrigerator hum. New York, ruthless as ever, doesn't knock. Your biggest client's film deal teeters. A director wants page 1 rewrites, the studio wants a new ending, and every executive in the chain wants you in the room yesterday. The message is clean. Fly back, fix it, save the book's future. You stand in the doorway of the kitchen with your phone bright in your hand, and the sound of Libby's soft footsteps coming down the hall. She reads your face the way she used to read weather, then nods once. Go. I can do some of it from here, you say, even as your fingers are already building an itinerary. You could, she counters, but you won't like it. You don't half-fix things. She pours orange juice, sets a glass in front of you. This doesn't mean you're choosing the city over me. You look at the ultrasound pinned beneath the peach magnet, at the calendar squares where her doctor's appointments live like constellations. Then at your sister who has always wanted your yes but never your apology. I'll be back for Friday, you say. We tour houses. Friday, she echoes as if stamping the word in wet cement. Bring back a win. At the bookstore, Charlie is configuring a window of paperbacks and asters when you tell him. He takes it the way he takes edit letters. A slight flinch, then focus. When? Now. You hate the thinness in your voice. I'll be back in 3 days. He nods, eyes on you rather than the display. Do the work you're built to do. And you? I'll keep the lights on, he says. And your front table exactly as you left it, which is an extreme act of faith on my part. You mean to keep it professional, to let the goodbye be clean. Instead, you step into him and he catches you like a sentence catches its meaning, brief and solid, the kind of hold that says go without saying leave. When you pull away, the town has already started unspooling behind you like ribbon. The city receives you with teeth. Cab brakes shriek. Elevators swallow you whole and spit you onto floors that smell like toner and resolve. You move the way you always have, through contracts, through egos, through a maze whose walls you know well enough to run blindfolded. The meeting is a war fought with subtext and clause work. You do not blink. You reconceive the arc in 3 clean strokes, protect the author's voice, give the studio a satisfyingly inevitable beat that does not betray the bones of the story. Someone at the far end of the table says, "That's it," and the room exhales. You don't. Not yet. When it's over, your client squeezes your hand so hard it aches. I thought they were going to take it away from me. They didn't, you say. You wrote the book. We just made sure the film remembers. Outside, the city pours itself into your lungs like a drug you'd promised to quit. You love it. You always have. The skyline is not a villain. It is the place you became the version of yourself who can steady a trembling voice through a door and then open it on a future. You walk for blocks with your phone silent, letting the streets decide the route, and find yourself in front of a tiny pocket park between 2 towers. A woman reads on a bench. A kid practices kickflips and fails and tries again. You think of Libby's list and how the city has always had its own version. Fix what can be fixed. Choose who you are. Love like a verb. Night brings celebration you can't postpone. A small dinner with your author, the director, your agent friend who knows when to drag you into the light. You raise a glass. You let them call you a shark because you've reclaimed the word. When you slip away to the curb and dial Sunshine Falls, the river answers through the line in cricket static. Libby's voice is drowsy but bright. Well, we saved it. You always do. A pause. Do you feel like you're losing anything by winning? You look up. The city glows like a motherboard. No, you say, surprised by the clean truth. Not this time. Then bring that home, she says. I picked 3 houses to tour. One has a fig tree. After you hang up, you text Charlie a photo of a bookstore window you pass in Midtown. A clean diagonal of spines, a single vase, a handwritten card that nails the mood in 12 words. Note the caption you type. Short, specific, human. He replies with a photo of your shared front table. The aster stems curve like punctuation. Your monster lives. Also, Mrs. Pritchard sold out of peonies before noon. She blames your arrangement. In a good way. You type back Friday, then add before you can edit yourself into caution, want to take a walk. 3 days, compress and expand like lung work. The deal closes, the paperwork sings. You tell your author to sleep. You book the early flight and land back in a morning that smells like rain. Sunshine Falls receives you with a puddled square and a sky pretending at thunder, then thinking better of it. Libby meets you with a clipboard and a grin, then shepherds you through doorways painted in too many hopeful colors. You roam kitchens. You open closets. You stand in backyards that ache with swings not yet hung. At the 3rd house, the fig tree leans over a fence as if straining toward your shoulders. In the smallest bedroom, sunlight scores the wall where a crib will fit. Libby watches your face. Too much? Enough, you answer, and your throat is tight for no good strategic reason. You sign nothing. This is her purchase. But you give notes on the inspection clause and the close date, and when she teases you for it, you let her. Because this is how you love. with eyes on the trapdoors. That evening, the town hums with a pop-up you and Charlie planned by text while you were in the city. Sunshine reads after dark. Battery candles in mason jars, paperbacks at a discount, a local guitarist who knows 3 chords well and a 4th almost. Mrs. Pritchard sets a bucket of dahlias by the door with a sign that says pay what you can. People show up because this is what towns do when you invite them with care. You move through the crowd with a stack of staff pics, recommending a romance to a woman who swears she doesn't like them, a mystery to a teenager who thinks he's above them, a poetry collection to a man who confesses he's tired of speaking in prose. Charlie handles the till with surgical calm. Every time your paths cross, your bodies adjust as if to catch a different rhythm. At one point, you drop a receipt. He bends at the same time. You bump heads. You both laugh, quick and true. Near closing, he tilts his chin toward the alley. You follow. The hum of the event muffled by brick and evening. The river works at its sentence beyond the dark. He stands with his hands in his pockets, and the look he gets when he is not editing anything, when he is simply present. How was the room? He asks. Loud, you say. Perfect. And you? Also loud, also perfect. You take a breath. I'm not leaving New York. I didn't ask you to. I know. You look at him full on, unwilling to make yourself small to fit any stage. I don't want a story where loving you means abandoning the piece of myself that built me. He nods like he's been waiting for that line to land on the page. Good, because I'm not leaving my parents until my mom is past this next scan and the store can walk without me. A beat. But I'm coming back to the city when I can. 1 week a month at first. I already said yes to a freelance edit for a house that scares me in the right ways. A smile starts in your chest and reaches your mouth like a rumor that turns into truth. We're not a compromise. If we're an edit that keeps the living heart. You step closer. Inevitable? He tilts his head, considering your word, and then softly. Chosen. You kiss him not because a list told you to, but because the scene wrote itself and you refuse to undercut it. It is steadier than the first, deeper. The kind that holds a future without crushing it. When you come up for air, you say it before doubt can translate the sentence into caution. I want to split my weeks. City then here. I can run point from anywhere. My authors care about ferocity more than zip codes. I'll invest in the shop's events calendar. We'll pitch the studio on a Sunshine Falls launch party when the film goes live. We'll make a bridge. He grins, actual and rare. We're good at bridges. You return to the glow of the shop to find Libby by the register. A dahlia tucked behind her ear, looking at you like you just won a prize she entered you in without asking. She lifts the clipboard, the checklist now smudged and folded and decorated with new stars, and taps the margin where she's written in tiny script, "Find where you belong." A neat checkmark blooms as you watch. Later, after the last customer leaves and the mason jars go dark, you and Libby walk home on a street that now contains 2 futures and refuses to make you pick one. She slips her arm through yours. You're keeping both, she says, proud and certain. I am, you answer. Turns out I don't have to be softer to be loved, I just have to be seen. She bumps your shoulder. I've always seen you. At the porch, you pause. The fig tree in a borrowed pot waits by the steps, a gift from the seller who heard about sisters and houses and decided to tip the story toward abundance. You touch a leaf. It smells like green sugar and stubbornness. In the morning, you'll open your laptop in a town that knows your name and send an email that makes a room full of people pivot. In a week, you'll stand on a Manhattan sidewalk and order dumplings at midnight and text a photo of steam to a man who edited your armor into honesty. In a month, you'll tour a house with a fig tree permanently rooted and a room that will belong to a human who will learn your laugh before they learn your job title. You have not chosen one world over the other. You have written a sentence long enough to hold them both. The morning breaks clean, the kind that makes everything, River, rooftops, even the peeling paint on the cottage look newly minted. Sunshine falls, hums awake around you. Dogs barking from porches, the clatter of dishes in the diner, a bicycle bell ringing down Main Street. It feels less like a backdrop now and more like a place you've written yourself into. Libby is already on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, checklist in her lap. Most of the boxes are checked, some with stars and doodles scrawled around them, others with notes in her looping hand. She grins when you sit beside her. You realize we did it, right? We turned the list into a story. You sip your coffee watching the river. Stories don't end with check marks. Exactly, she says, tapping her belly, and they keep going. Across the square, the bookstore door creaks open. Charlie steps out, squinting at the sunlight, hair rumpled, shirt rolled at the sleeves like always. He sees you and raises a hand, a silent invitation, and you know the rest of your day, your week, your life, won't be defined by what you leave behind, but by what you choose to carry forward. The city will still call. Your inbox will still fill with voices demanding your attention. You'll still fly to boardrooms where your sharp edges are not only tolerated but necessary. But here in this small town there is another rhythm waiting. Sisterhood that deepens into something unshakable, a home that will soon echo with children's laughter, a bookstore that has already begun to grow roots again. And there is him, the man who sees past your armor, who argues with you like a worthy opponent and kisses you like a truth you can't deny. You fold the checklist once, then again, and tuck it into Libby's hand. This one's yours now, you tell her. I'll make my own list. What's on it? She asks. You think of deadlines and daisies, of skyscrapers and rivers, of a fig tree waiting to be planted in a new yard, of a love that doesn't ask you to shrink. Everything, you say simply. When you rise and cross the street toward Charlie, your steps are steady. You are not abandoning the woman the city made. You are not erasing the caretaker you became after loss. You are adding chapters, refusing to be written as someone else's footnote. The bell over the bookstore door rings as you push it open. He looks up, that small, rare smile breaking across his face, and in that instant you know, this is not the ending of a story. It is the rewriting of one, 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 rewriting of one.